Speed and beauty are my objectives, and I'm crossing my fingers that I have the power to get there. A sleek car design that I intend to use all means at my disposal to swiftly oust from his possession. I might as well have T-Top's ejecto SEO on hand in case I have to weld the door shut again in the worst-case scenario. There was plenty of crime, mayhem, and accidents in Big Chief's world, rather than opulence and fast cars. While dominating the streets on Street Outlaws, the man was also a legend behind the wheel and managed to evade the authorities. From a hit and run at the age of 18 to arrest for racing and driving citations to $1 million tax scam, his background is just as tumultuous as his victories. The biggest shocker of all is yet to come, so don't miss an episode. Rapid vehicles, rapid funds, and a $1 million blunder. Big Chief is a name that has become synonymous with street racing. He is the public face of Street Outlaws. But what if your assumptions were wrong and all you really knew was a small part of the story? Creator of the mythology, Justin Shearer, has a background that includes more than just extreme thrills and fame on screen. An unseen truth that has been hushed by the rumble of the engines until now, when it will be impossible to ignore any longer. Big Chief has always had an unquenchable thirst for speed, even as a young child. In 1980, he came into this world amidst the undulating hills of Louisville, Kentucky. At the tender age of 9, he arrived in Oklahoma in 1992, already deeply engrossed in the subculture of underground street racing. As a kid, he used to fantasize about being a driver and would often take his bike on bike rides to Old Route 66 just to see all the excitement. Although there were some major twists and turns along the way, the dream did eventually come true. Everyone is so pumped up, parts are starting to break, cars aren't working as they should, and no one is putting in as much effort as the 405 to drive down highways right now. Before Street Outlaws became a viral sensation, Justin had already achieved considerable fame in his own right. He committed his first major faux pas as an adult at the tender age of 18. The hit-and-run accident he was caught in occurred in February of 1998. Instead of waiting for the police to arrive, he ran away from the scene of the crime in Oklahoma. A major mistake has been made there. The law says you have to stay where you are after an accident, but Chief didn't bother to do that. The reality of possibly serving 2 years in jail became apparent to him the moment the dust settled. He was lucky that he managed to avoid losing any serious time this time. His rearrest and subsequent detention in Oklahoma occurred in 2001, after some time had elapsed. How much are the costs? Although we don't know the exact details, we do know that they were severe enough to warrant his incarceration. Not long after that, in the year 2000, he was apprehended again for driving faster than 85 miles per hour through Flagstaff, Arizona. Either he was training for a race, experimenting with his riding style, or simply hoping for the best. No matter the nature of the offense, the police would not abide it. A run-in with the law is inevitable whenever you receive a ticket. That being said, that was merely the start. Big Chief was reviewing his traffic violations when the Discovery Channel paid him a visit. Suddenly, millions of people were able to watch the illicit street racing that had been happening for some time. The question is, was it really illegal? Let's be honest. Reversely, it is true. Everything that happened, though, was actually a hoax. The highways were still open, the cops knew about it, and the supposed run-ins with the cops were all made up. Everything was staged for the cameras, so that viewers would think they were getting the real deal. But here's the thing, Big Chief still managed to get himself into trouble, even when no one was watching. Even in 2018, he received a speeding ticket, this time in Springfield, Missouri. This time he was the one who received the ticket. Within the confines of his garage, he discovered contentment at Midwest Street Cars. In addition to providing him with a means of subsistence, this establishment also serves as a safe refuge, where he and his significant other could seek refuge from the impending peril in the year 2021. Even though his Canadian, Oklahoma traffic ticket for an expired license plate was a small infraction, it seemed like his record was going to be anything but clean at this moment. Next up was the gravest of all offenses, operating a motor vehicle with a suspended license. Keep in mind that Chief's license revocation was not an isolated incident. He had even made fun of the fact that he was driving around without a license, bill of sale, or tags, while the broadcast was airing. He had even gone into more detail about it. Being caught though, I didn't expect that. At this stage, a year in jail was a real possibility. That seems like it should be enough, doesn't it? However, Big Chief's favorite pastime, perhaps even more than speed, is dodging the IRS. The federal government of the United States did not come knocking in 2021, seeking a favor. Between 2013 and 2018, when Street Outlaws was at the height of its popularity, Chief allegedly neglected to file his taxes. Oh, the bill? Where is it? A staggering $1,270,000. Furthermore, the IRS will not merely beg gently. When they come to collect on your behalf, they will take what is rightfully theirs. Including homes, cars, and bank accounts, nothing is off limits. All of his possessions might be forfeited if he fails to pay by 2029. Also, there's another story waiting to be told about Big Chief, and you thought his history was already pretty wild. Although the name is not as well known, there is a legacy that will endure. Designed to win, but fell short in the end. Is it something you've ever noticed that some people only gain fame after they're dead? Famous artists and writers who fit this description include Johann Sebastian Bach, Vincent van Gogh, Emily Dickinson, Herman Melville, and even Bruce Lee from the film industry. I go by the nickname Flip, and I enjoy auto racing, for those of you who are interested. Unless you're really into street racing, you might not be familiar with this person's name, but he certainly left his mark. Taking part in races alongside the guys who would later become reality TV stars, Flip was an integral part of Oklahoma's racing scene. Despite his seemingly trashed car, his optimistic outlook, and his abilities, he tore up the streets. The catch, though, is that Flip had already died by the time Street Outlaws aired on television, and no one knows what caused his death. Let me explain it to you in simple terms. In 2013, the Discovery Channel debuted a program named Street Outlaws, which gave viewers a glimpse into the world of illicit street racing and the people behind it. This article's goal is to give readers a synopsis of their common ground in the niche subject of tuning, with a focus on the fascinating Caddy Jack universe. Drama, extreme car customizations, and some of the most famous names in the business are all on the show. Big Chief, real name Justin Shearer, and Kamikaze, real name Chris Day, are two well-known figures. However, are you aware of what became of Flip, their friend? There should have been more of an emphasis on him. The competition began with Flip's presence, as he was a part of the original crew of Oklahoma street racers. His vehicle was a 1980 Chevrolet El Camino, affectionately called the Elko, or in a more colorful sense, the Old. It was a monstrous automobile. With the intention of putting it together, this device was pieced together, using anything that Flip could find or steal. It was actually rather fast, despite how difficult it looked. In addition, the person exhibited a clear personality trait. He was never seen without a drink and a cigarette, and he had no qualms about delivering a smack talk. Someone who would be great on TV if given the chance. Unfortunately, Flip didn't get to bask in the spotlight of fame, because he passed away right before the episode aired. Tyler Gene Pretty came into this world in Chickasha, Oklahoma, on November 30, 1981. It is more than slightly fitting that he hails from a region with a rich history of racing. He inherited an early love of cars from his father, who was a drag racer himself. Big Chief and Kamikaze were his childhood companions, and he shared their enthusiasm for cars from an early age. As a group, they were pedaling to the races to watch and learn as much as they could before taking in the action firsthand. Flip went the conventional route after finishing college, getting a job and living a normal life for a while. Before landing a job at Warren Caterpillar, where he remained for 10 years consecutively, he worked as a storekeeper. Races were always the goal though. Caterpillar even sponsored a couple of his events, which was a neat idea. He was also an active participant in racing, in addition to just discussing it. He constructed his El Camino, with every spare dime he had, aiming for maximum speed and stealth. A car, not a person, now goes by your mom's name. If he's going to refer to his car as your mom, it's going to have to be incredibly fast and dumb. Those who joked about how it was held together with duct tape were partially correct, to be honest. The thing is though, after that car won, Flip gained a lot of fame in the underground racing community. It is now that things begin to get murky. Nobody knows for sure what caused Flip's death, but he took his own life on May 28, 2013, at the young age of 31. Could you please tell me the official details? Unfortunately, he died at his home in Yukon, Oklahoma. Things become more intricate at this point. It may have been a gunshot wound, according to some. After that, his wife Morgan indirectly implied that he had depression. However, there is no evidence to support this claim. Other stories also made the rounds, suggesting things like alcohol use, accidents, or something completely different. Although it is their right to remain silent, the fact that he and the show's producers have done so has only added fuel to the fire of public speculation. Even though Flip was never there to see Street Outlaws' meteoric climb to fame, his influence lives on in the show. Along the El Camino, his best friend Big Chief watched out for it, to make sure it didn't go missing. It took Big Chief some time before he relinquished control of the car to Kamikaze. Given that Flip and Kamikaze had been childhood friends, that made complete sense. In addition, he raced the Elko for a while, during which he maintained and improved it. The car, however, was in a horrific accident in February of the year 2021. The Elko's frame was reduced to a charred mess, as the dust settled after Kamikaze lost control of the vehicle. Given that it is a race car, its construction is fiberglass, its tires are enormous, and its engine is large, we would never normally set foot in such a vehicle. Nevertheless, we are excited to tackle the assignment. Later on, Kamikaze lost some parts as a result of that, including some wheels, a tire, and even some brake rotor. Quickly, fans snapped them up, and bidding went over $110,000. Some even went so far as to say that if the total reached $225,000, Kamikaze, still dressed as a race car, would personally bring the winner a steak dinner. Even if it didn't happen, I guarantee you that dinner will be indelible in your memory. To carry on Flip's work, Kamikaze rebuilt an Elko into a Chevrolet Corvette SAF, paying homage to the legendary vehicle. It was different, but it allowed him to continue his friend's work. Moreover, if the rumors are true, it's likely that the development of an additional Elko is currently underway. After leaving behind a famous car, Flip also had a family to think about. Even after he passed away, his widow Morgan Amber Pretty kept him close to her heart by honoring him with a wing skull tattoo. Toy Jean, Remy J., Dresden Rem, and Bennett William were the 4 children born to this union. Their names were just as unique as their dad's car. And every year on May 28th, Flip's fans pay tribute by pausing to think about his life. The fact that Street Outlaws' Big Chief and Kamikaze are doing their best to remember him guarantees that people will talk about him. Flip would still be a major player in racing lore, even if he couldn't have enjoyed the spotlight himself. He was an adventurous soul who built a monstrous car, and did everything in his power to ensure his legacy would live on. Almost legendary would be the best way to describe it. While the sheer speed of some racers makes them famous, others carve out a niche for themselves in the sport, thanks to a unique blend of speed, personality, and skill. Now the AZN is going to be involved, from street hustlers to TV stars. That is the story of some Oklahoma City residents. The city is known for its endless highways and the lingering smell of burning tires. A young man named Jeff Bonnet was getting ready to do something really extraordinary in this country of fast cars and high hopes. A jeune is likely the name most people use to describe the person who hangs out near farm truck on Street Outlaws. To some he is just a sidekick, but his story is much more than that. He isn't just sticking close to the man in the rusty truck. Growing up in the early 1980s, Jeff could hear nothing but the roar of engines and the commotion of late-night street races. It was important to Jeff's dad, Dennis, that he learned how to use a wrench properly, so that Jeff would follow in his footsteps. Jeff had borrowed a rusty 1964 Chevrolet Nova from his dad when he was a broke high school student, and the two of them were fixing it up. I am desperate to own that car, but I am unemployed and broke. He got creative and started painting house numbers on curbs to make some money so he could repay his father. Having some sidewalk art done does not guarantee that a person will go down in racing history. Jeff wanted to do more than tinker with the engine. He was also very interested in speed. It was around this time that he met the man who would have a profound impact on his life. Sean Whitley, better known as Farm Truck. Jeff, a young man looking to make his mark in the Oklahoma racing scene, was up against an established, formidable opponent. Something clicked between them, and they became inseparable almost instantly. Some of the other racers were out here buying the fastest, most expensive muscle car, but Jeff was not one of them. His intention was distinct. A Volkswagen Beetle was his personal vehicle purchase in 1970. No, it's a bug. Nobody ever expects to see this kind of car tearing up a drag strip. I can tell you that much. Jeff, in contrast, was not one to rigidly adhere to protocol. He made that pitiful, old, rusty and foolish car into something that could hold its own against the big boys. Oh, I see. It might have caused a collision. I deeply regret disappointing others. It is the one thing I wish I could take back. Much like his trash talk, the moniker Dung Beetle stuck with him and became an intrinsic part of who he was. Getting trophies was not something that interested Jeff. While the other racers were more focused on showing off their speed, he and Farm Truck were just looking to have a good time. They managed to make respectable cars, despite their oddness and unpredictability. Because of this result, they became beloved by fans, but they were also not seen as formidable opponents. In 2013, after finally catching the eye of the folks behind Street Outlaws, Jeff and Farm Truck were given the chance to become famous on television. They were the ones who made everyone laugh, even though they didn't win every race. They came out on top, invigorating the crowd. Trash talking and keeping the event's momentum were all skills that Jeff possessed. People were crazy about it. The capacity to entertain, however, is not always enough to keep spectators engaged in drag racing. Jeff had no intention of racing in a way that encouraged overt competition. Although it moved quickly, the Dung Beetle would not soon be victorious. Because of this, the program's developers ran into an issue. Ultimately, spectators watched the races to witness the competitors go head-to-head, and not just for fun. Jeff and Farm Truck were eventually kicked out of competitions. For some it was because they weren't committed enough to winning, while for others, it was because the producers simply wanted to focus on the top contenders. Regardless, the next move for Jeff and Farm Truck had to be decided. In order to avoid being minimized, they altered the trajectory of events. If their strategy failed to keep up with the others, they would change their approach entirely. Following that, they received their own spin-off series, AZN and Street Outlaws. Farm Truck,